But if it was Gilbert Godfrey saying it,
Well, I don't know. I just live in this godforsaken video store. I don't know how to leave. Martha!
Welcome to Ranting Rewind. I'm Lincoln.
Hello and welcome. What's going on? Oh, okay. I got to stop swinging it. What's going on?
like, give this guy a stand. Just
Yeah, I know,
right?
No, it's fine. What's going on? Welcome to Ranting Rewind. I'm Lincoln. I host another podcast called This Will Never Work, but today we're here in the Rental Rewind studio doing kind of an after show thing. I am sitting here with Dan the Man, the brains, and Tare, the host of Rental Rewind. And today we're going to talk about their favorite movies, why they wanted to do this, and really, you know, what it was like growing up in the 80s.
We're going to have a lot of memories.
I know.
This is a therapy session too, right?
Oh, good God.
like, I just pour out of me.
Oh, yes.
All the memories from the 80s.
I think every time I do this, it's a therapy session. So, Tare,
Yeah?
I'm with you. Dan and I are with you, and we are...
I never said I was with him.
Dan? Dan, I am with you.
Okay.
Oh.
Oh, we got hands.
Let's just feel the
Rental
energy
Rewind.
flow. I love
Kumbaya. Anyway, what's going on, guys?
sweet.
Welcome to the set. I mean, this is your set, but I've taken it over.
Isn't it beautiful?
It is a beautiful set. I absolutely love this.
Mitch and the boys did an
Mitch
awesome
and the
job.
boys.
Mitch and the boy, Mitch and the boys. So, tell me a little bit about Rental Rewind and what the game show looks like.
Well, it's definitely like an evolving concept at this point, which just makes it so much fun. But the concept does revolve around the game show. This game show that is, I think, my brainchild, my character's brainchild. And I'm like, let's do a game show. And right from there, we're kind of evolving what builds around this game show. And man, the game show itself is just too much fun. Like, I feel like at the end of each show, I'm exhausted because I've experienced 110% joy from start to finish.
You bring a ton of energy.
Yeah.
Like, you're all the time. You're high up there. And then I had hosted one.
You hosted one.
I hosted one. And then it was like, but my energy is a lot more static.
But you're the
low-key.
brains.
Yeah.
Brains,
And
yeah.
so, and I think
Brains.
we realized through that evolution that like this works better as I'm the sidekick. And I think I was even the one that suggested it in the conversation we were having. I was like, no, he's the host. He's the big, loud, crazy guy. I'm a guy who works at the video store that just make sure everything's cleaned up by 10 so I don't get in trouble. Like, that's it.
So my understanding of it through conversations with you guys is there's a little bit of a narrative built on top of the game show, and I love that. So like, you're playing versions of yourselves, but yourselves.
Yeah.
So like, you run the video store, and you're just like, like you say, have it cleaned up by, before I come in the next
want to
morning.
be supportive, but I think I'm also getting a little bit annoyed with him because, do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like
look
that.
at him.
Yeah.
I know.
And listen
and
to
it's
it.
so
Listen to
good.
him. Listen to the way he talks.
I know. And I just like go on these
How
tangents.
could you
and
not
stuff.
love that, but also be super
just
annoyed
like-
by that face?
You got to control it, but at the same time, you can't. Like,
No, I know.
But I kept thinking of Bob Ross and like Happy Little Trees.
Yes.
Because he would talk about you need light to show dark and dark to show light. And so when you have that contrast, if it's just Tare 100% of the time, being at 100%, like it's kind of overwhelming. But suddenly I pop in and he seems higher and I seem a little more static. Like, it just has that nice contrast, that nice dynamic. And obviously that straight guy, wacky guy is classic, right? That's
It's
the good cop.
classic,
Bud
yeah.
Abbott, Lou Costello.
Yeah.
That's,
definitely classic. But how many times has it been brought into a game show element? Like, I've been kind of doing my research here, and I think there's something really unique to this game show.
Well-
like building in a narrative, like you're saying, like what is that? Like that's so cool.
And that's why I love that. I love this concept so much because from the beginning, when the concept was pitched to me initially, it was just like pitched as a game show.
Yeah.
And then later on, it was like, oh yeah, okay, we've changed it a little bit and we've added this narrative element to the top. And I'm like, oh, I'm even more in because you're still having real people as contestants and you're still playing a real game show.
Yes.
But that narrative element is just like, because it sucks you in, and there are narrative bits that go along with that are, you know, shot in this space and stuff like that I assume are like themed within the, you know, 80s movie genre and that kind of 90s aesthetic. So it very much like the space has that feel, and the game show itself has that feel, and I love what you guys have done here.
And we've even talked about having, like, Mitch's idea was to have Mitch being the director. This is kind of all his brainchild, right? But it was his idea to have, like, people trying to walk in to rent movies while we're doing the show. And I like opportunity for guest spots, right? Like you could just have local celebrities pop in, whatever, man. Like it's just,
that is such a good idea.
That is such a good idea.
It becomes this almost talk show / game show.
The dynamic, actually, it was funny earlier. I heard you guys talking. The dynamic, the way it was pitched between the two of you, is almost Dante and Randall.
Yes.
To make like a Clerks reference,
right?
Very much, you know, like Randall and then Dante, where you're like, I'm not even supposed to be here today I wanted to close the store at 6.
That's right.
Yeah.
And you want to run your stupid game show.
Because all I want to do is talk about movies. And I like, and that's where Dan and I are going to work so well together, because there is that enthusiasm I have for movies is real, right? Like it's very, very real. So I'm just playing into that kind of instinct that I have to talk to people about movies. And it is this intense passion. And, you know, so far I've agreed with everybody. I can't wait to disagree with somebody in an episode where they're like, oh, I don't like that movie. And I'm like, what?
Just watch you melt down.
Like that Scream. You know the scene in Scream when he's talking about the rules and stuff like that. There are rules.
Oh, Jamie Kennedy.
Jamie Kennedy and Scream for sure.
Yeah, I can't wait for that opportunity. Yeah, I hope I want to have fun with it, but
we'll look for it, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna look for it so quickly. Like, what do you think of this movie? What do you think of this movie? Just disagree. Yeah.
So obviously, I mean, we grew up in the era of video stores, and that's something that the nostalgia of that is a really big part of this for us. And I know for me, I spent a good portion of my childhood hanging out in my local video store, and actually became friends with the people that were running it. There was also a pizza shop.
Definitely.
And I went there almost every day, and I would get like pizza. I would rent movies and stuff like that. So I know for me, like there's a selection of movies that I would always go back to, because we didn't have Netflix in those days.
That's right.
So for you guys, what was one of the movies that you rented the most? Which movie did you bring home the most back in like the VHS DVD era?
Oh man.
Number one with a bullet for me was Ghostbusters. I rented the shit out of that movie to the point where my parents were like, "Can we just buy this?"
Yeah, like you've spent so much money on it.
It's beautiful. Your artwork.
I didn't draw it. But
is that the Scoleri
That's
brothers?
the Scoleri brothers, and then the Library Ghost. It's going to be all the way up my... Dude, Ghostbusters is my favorite movie of all time.
Me too.
Back to the Future is probably the other one that I would have...
That's my number 2.
Oh, man, Dan, I love you.
And then number 3 is Princess Bride. Those were my top 3.
I hate that movie. No! I actually don't hate Princess Bride. It's just it's not even in my top 3. Yeah. No, I love that movie, though. That's a great...
Of course, sure.
As You Wish.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
So those are my
your top 3.
Those are my top 3.
Wow, that's a great top 3.
Yeah.
Tare?
Man, what a loaded question.
Okay, do you want to give me a do you want me to give you a genre?
Yeah, because that's what I was going to do. I was like,
comedy?
my genre that I just couldn't get enough of was science fiction.
Oh, okay, give me something that then.
Science fiction all the way. But back in the day, so it would have been more like fantasy back in the day. Lots
you are just
of Willow.
All over the
like
place.
lots and lots of Willow.
Willow, okay.
Willow was nonstop for me. As a kid watching that movie, and just the idea that like adventures can be bigger than yourself, and you have to like go against the world, and you make it out the other end just like a more completed human being.
I don't know if I've ever seen Willow. I really love
watching him transform.
Of course I've seen Willow. I'm not an idiot.
Things coming out of me.
No, Willow's a great movie.
Yeah.
Have you watched the series?
I've started to watch the series,
And
it has a completely different vibe. So like what I was just
Well,
saying,
yeah.
what I was just saying about how like, oh, I was a little kid watching this, going like, I can be a part of a world that's bigger than me and like face things that are more complicated and like make it out the end of it. You know, it's more teeny, it's more teen drama, right? Where it's like they're focusing on like the young adolescents growing up in this world and them coming to terms with the fact that they are going to be leaders in this world and how are they going to influence it in their own way.
but
And
you've also grown up and changed.
I'm like
as a
grown up now, and I'm
yeah.
like, I don't really care about that. Like, I fit into this system now, so I'm like, fine.
Yeah, fair enough. Do you And that poses actually an interesting question because I saw a headline of an article. I never read articles, but I saw a headline of an article where it was like, have millennials aged themselves out of watching stuff that is set in like high schools? And like, do you ever? Not necessarily because obviously when we're growing up, there's stuff that we would have like Degrassi. Did you guys like Degrassi or
Kidding
watch?
me? Degrassi was like on every day.
Exactly.
Like it was after school.
But
That was
could
the thing.
could you go back and watch Degrassi now as an adult?
Oh, that'd be painful.
Yes.
I agree with that.
It would be so painful. Like Euphoria is one of the newer like high school shows.
Yeah.
And like I've watched the first 2 seasons and it's a great show, but it's also there's this element of it where it's kind of like we're so far beyond high school that it's like, oh, it's so hard to put yourself back in that.
I had that with Ms. Marvel because I'm trying to stay on top of the MCU.
Okay.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the Ms. Marvel show on Disney Plus is set in a high school, or she's high school age.
Okay.
And I had that like, oh, I'm disconnected from this.
Right.
And I still love Marvel, but it didn't grab me in the same way. And it was the first time I sort of felt like what you're describing, that like, yeah, I might be too old for this.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Isn't that sad? It's sad and kind of like
life, you know.
No, I know. Oh, absolutely. I mean,
we're just getting older.
I've recently hit this point in my life. We're gonna get real for a second. I keep
Therapy
looking at the
time.
TV, but we're gonna get it's therapy time. I've hit this point in my life where I'm like I'm looking back less, and I'm staying more in the now and looking a little bit more forward. And I remember when I was 29, turning 30, I was so upset. I didn't want to turn 30. But then I turned 30 and I was like, oh, life's not so bad.
Right.
Okay, we're 30 now. Then you kind of keep trudging forward, and it's like I'm almost in my mid 30s, and I'm like, okay, it's not so bad. I don't want to turn 40, but I know once I get there, it's going to be okay. But yeah, you hit this like point of diminishing returns with watching adolescent stuff, and it
Definitely.
just kind of.
But I'm scratching my head and thinking like how much of that happens with movies. Like TV shows, I have a totally different attachment to those things than, especially if we're talking about like Degrassi and things. The narratives there are built around you know, supporting real crises that are happening in those characters' lives. Is there something like, I don't know how much of that, like if I watch a movie with the similar narratives, I have a totally different reaction to it. Like Fast Times at Ridgemont High, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like I can watch that and go, yep.
But
Breakfast Club.
But
Yep,
that's hitting
yep,
those
yep.
nostalgia buttons for you, right?
That's why I'm comforted
Yeah.
by it. It's nostalgia more than
I
like,
think
oh, this
so,
is real.
but I don't know.
But also-
not in your head.
You can
You want to be?
It's crazy in here.
no, but I'm more so talking about stuff that's coming out now. Whereas
Oh, yeah.
going back and watching The Breakfast Club,
Yeah.
that will always make you feel young because you were always younger than them when that movie came out.
Yeah.
Right? Anything that like Fast Time-
Adventures in Babysitting
Yes.
is always going to be...
Yeah, man.
We're gonna have to get a liability waiver for the equipment.
I watched that, and it for me it still holds up, even though there's definitely some problematic
Adventures in
stuff it.
Babysitting?
Yeah.
Adventures in
And-
Babysitting.
and it's fun.
Do you want to? Should we talk about problematic things in old movies? Because
No,
we can
that's-
talk about that for a
we don't
very
have
long
Next
to,
time.
we don't have to
podcast.
do that. I was just
No, I know, but honestly, it's just like it. Yeah, I think there is a lot of this, like with what you were saying with the Marvel thing, the diminishing returns with being able to kind of identify, because we're so much older than, like, we're not even the kids that are in high school now. Like it's so much different now,
Yeah.
and
true.
so
Oh man, like how you would, it was like a date night. Like, so when we were younger, like having somebody come over and you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally into you. And then you go to the rental place. And then you're
Yes.
like, what are you really like? Who are you really?
That was like a little window into their soul.
A window into their soul. And like, I would know
What are you gonna pick?
in like a matter of minutes. I was like, we are not gonna
And that's
make it.
you're right, because so video stores were a lot of the time sectioned off into genres.
Yeah.
So you would exactly. It's like you're on a date and you're like, which aisle are they going to go down? If they start to go down the horror aisle, you marry that person. You never let them go.
That's right.
That chick got guts.
What was your favorite section in the video store when you were growing up? What was your favorite section to go down?
Well, like for me, like I was saying about how like science fiction, fantasy.
Yes.
But the thing I have the most memories of is horror.
Totally.
Walking,
But why,
it
though?
was the gauntlet of fear for me.
Yes.
I would just like it would really rock me to my core. Sometimes I knew that there was a cover art coming up that I just couldn't even look at. It scared me so
Which one?
much. Hellraiser.
Hellraiser.
It's just
You know which one
burnt
rocked
into
me to my
mind.
core?
What?
Evil Dead 2. Evil Dead 2. It's the skull, like
it's the
with the
skull.
eyeballs and the kind of the
So good.
Oh
though.
my god, that cover is so good.
and Brain Dead. Brain Dead was so confused. I would look at it and go, "What is this movie about?"
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
Can we see the cover of Brain Dead?
oh man, pull it up.
Yeah, pull up
It's
the cover of Brain Dead
in-
for us.
it-
Honestly,
Because I can't picture it.
You can't picture it.
No,
Oh man, it's burnt
one
into
of
my mind.
yeah, one of my favorites was the Jack Frost cover, where it's like the snowman and you kind of turn and it was like the
I
lenticular
remember
thing.
that.
Yeah, there it is.
Oh yeah, where
Yeah.
she's pulling open the lips. The
And-
lips.
Is it the lips or
Yes,
the,
that
Yeah.
one. Dead Alive.
And there's a scene that plays into
Dead
that
Alive,
image.
not Brain Dead.
It doesn't look like that.
There's Brain Dead where he's like stretching his
Yes,
face.
Brain Dead is a
one I don't
totally different
remember.
movie.
Okay.
That one I don't remember.
So that one is a different
So
movie.
Dead Alive is nasty.
and that's
Nasty.
Peter Jackson.
Dead Alive was, yeah.
Oh yeah.
Dead Alive.
Yeah.
And that scene, like looking at that cover, I was like, it took me years to figure out this is a comedy, Tare. Like you shouldn't be
Dead
afraid
Alive?
of Dead Alive.
Okay, that's a very interesting point that you make, because a lot of those movies that have crazy covers, as a kid, I was terrified to watch them, and I didn't watch a lot of them based purely on the fact that like the cover was like Evil Dead 2. I never watched it until I was an adult. But you watch it and you're like, oh shit, this is hilarious.
This is a masterpiece.
Yes.
Like this is a masterpiece
not
of like
scary at all.
horror, and you're
So
you're buckling up for a ride.
It's the imagery that is something that we're missing in today's society. These kids aren't being scared enough.
Yeah.
By terrifying imagery in video stores to keep them in line, because that's what really shaped me as an
If you
adult.
don't eat your vegetables,
That
you're
is-
gonna watch Dead Alive
That's
tonight.
right.
Another
Oh my,
one of-
I will. I swear to God, I'll put Dead Alive
Lincoln's
on.
classic rants. Here's
You know what really grinds my gears? Hello.
Gilbert Godfrey's back.
Oh man,
He's in the building.
Tell us your philosophy, God.
These movie covers that the kids can't see in the video store.
He choked on his own Godfrey.
Choking on Godfrey. Can we rename this podcast to Choking
It's
on
Gilbert
Godfrey?
Godfrey's hour. I gotta hold the mic over here
Right.
so you don't hear me screaming.
Mitch, can we see Fright Night? Can I see the
Oh,
yeah,
yeah,
put
Fright
up
Night.
Right, yeah, because that was the one that you
mine
said.
that I had said before we were just kind of chatting.
And that one, okay,
And I think the reason why
isn't it like it's like a smoky.
Yep.
Yes,
It's a house.
exactly.
Yeah.
and this one sticks with me because now
Look at the mouth.
You
Look-
want to talk about problematic?
Look at that.
I developed a love for like H.P. Lovecraft and that kind of thing. Like
Okay.
that kind of horror, and this has that sort of cosmic vibe to it.
Yes.
This massive thing is gonna come and eat your house. Like,
Yes. But it's about vampires.
I know, but I didn't know that.
No,
I've
yeah,
never
yeah.
actually seen it.
But
I never
okay.
watched it. I
Dude,
just-
come over tonight. Let's
No, no,
watch this.
No, but honestly, okay, so that's an interesting point. You developed a love for H.P. Lovecraft based on that.
I think it played into it.
because and you know what that is? That's trauma based,
That's
because
trauma.
that traumatized you as a
Yeah,
child.
yeah.
But it's almost like
good trauma.
it's almost like a kink in your head where you go back to it and you're like, I love things like that. I love it, and because it frightens you.
Yeah.
One thing, okay, this is completely off topic. One thing that terrifies me is gigantic structures underwater. So like the Titanic,
abyss.
and footage of the Titanic on the bottom of the sea, like when James Cameron and like the boy and all those other deep, when they found it and they're like going through and that is such an unsettling image. You know that pool that exists? It's like the deepest pool in the world, and like once they put the camera under, it's like an entire city underneath. Look it up if you, Mitch, pull that up. The deepest pool in the world, because we gotta find that.
I'm really glad we have Mitch here to Google.
Yeah,
pictures.
thanks,
But
Mitch.
honestly,
Google it.
underwater, like things underwater is so unsettling to me. But Titanic is like one of my favorite movies, and I can't stop looking at that stuff. But it makes me so like when people are welding underwater, when they're like welding giant like fucking oil tankers or stuff like that. I'm just like, oh, it's like gross to me. But like, yeah, look at this. Look at this.
I see. That's,
And the top, like the above part
I
of
have
it,
seen something like.
have not
I
seen
have
this.
seen
the
this.
above part of this, like look how scary that looks.
it's terrifying.
But the top just looks like a normal pool.
Yeah.
When you step into it, it looks like a normal pool, and then you go underneath, and you're like, oh, there's an entire city down here.
Oh man, I
why is
have
it
like a
down
list of movies for you to watch if like you can handle it. Like I'm not gonna pronounce it correct because it's Italian.
The Abyss.
Well, no, there's an actual scene in
actually
this
watched The
movie.
Abyss last
It's
week.
an amazing movie.
Oh,
No,
I love The Abyss.
it's Spirissa or something like that.
Okay.
Man, I'm so bad with other languages, but it's a movie about a ballet.
It's a good thing you're going to Mexico tomorrow.
Oh wait, no, this is a totally wrong movie that I'm saying about. I'm going on a totally different rant. However,
This is what I have to work with.
This person
at
goes
the video
into a
store.
pool
Randall.
that's like she goes into a room, and then there's this little pool in the center of the room, and you don't really know what's going on, and she has to go into it, and she goes into it because she's looking for something. She goes into it, and she goes into a totally different part of this mansion that is completely underwater, just like that.
And it's a foreign film?
It's a foreign
I
film.
need to watch this.
I have to look it up, and I'll
where-
probably tell Mitch to pull it up after this, like when I figure it out.
When
But
is it? When is it from?
1970 or 1980 something.
Sweet.
And I just
really
watched
wanna
it.
watch
It was
that.
a part of like a horror collection that I was watching for Halloween,
Okay.
and I had the same feeling that you were having based off of this one, because I don't remember the movie because it was honestly just this scene that really got to me. But man, it looked just like that.
So I wonder, do you subscribe to like past lives and like stuff like that, and like potential like
I must, because I just like love stories, and I feel like I'm in another story
for
right
sure,
now, right? Yeah.
So I often like I wonder if for me, I wonder if I like drowned at some point, because I love the water. I love water. I love being in water, but
That
stuff like
trauma.
that where it's like deep water and there's like things existing underwater that you can't get to and you can see, and it just like so eerie, super unsettling to me. It's like the most unsettling, and I probably want to make a movie about something like that one day.
I find
The Abyss 2.
I get
The Abyss
that
2.
because I have that with shafts of light. So if there's like, picture you're a little kid, you're in your room, it's dark, and the door is open just a crack, and there's just a shaft of light, and then you see like an eye or something moving in behind that. That freaks me out. Like that, I find that more unsettling than anything, I think. And
That is very unsettling.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just that vibe of like, there's something back there, and it triggers this sort of primal instinct in me of like, I'm
know
being
what's-
watched, I'm being hunted, I'm being,
It's so funny because literally like 3 nights ago, I woke up out of nowhere and I looked toward the door of my room, and what it was light coming in from the window because I had jostled the curtain a little bit, and it was just reflecting a sliver of light on the door, but it looked like someone had the door cracked open, and I looked at the door, and in my sleep I was like, hello?
yeah.
Hello? What are you doing?
Throwing pillows
and then
stuff.
I was like staring at it for a while, and I thought there was like almost like a sleep paralysis demon thing where I was like, what's
Yes.
going on? But I could like move, and I was like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, that's,
Anyways, got to get back to sleep now.
I was like,
Good
that's,
luck with that.
that's the window.
What you
All
just
right.
what you just said there is what I wanted to like bring this conversation back to. So we started this by talking about like kind of like the trauma of walking
Yes.
down the horror aisle
Yes.
and seeing these images and it having an effect on us. Man, I was such a troubled sleeper. I like had so many issues sleeping. It's very similar. I felt like I had sleep paralysis. Like things were going on when I was trying to sleep. And for me, when I started to watch horror movies. Like when I really started to kind of commit to the genre, find what I like, understand it, so many of these issues went away. So many of my like sleep issues went away. It was
Very
so
interesting.
interesting
It's
and
cathartic.
It's
right?
cathartic
It
because
has that
it's
moment
the
for
idea
you.
of like, okay, so we were exposed to things when we were younger, and like how for movie covers or even scenes from movies, and you rise above it. You're rising above it, and you're going past it, and you're exploring it, and you're coming out the other end a different person through the stories that you see. And so like for me, a lot of these terrifying things that would be happening when I was a young child, not being able to sleep and seeing these things that my subconscious was just like creating, but then exposing myself to somebody else's imagination and their thoughts of what terrifying is, oddly put me in a safer place as a younger person.
Your imagination is sometimes your own worst enemy.
Oh,
And
yeah.
exactly like what you just said, exposing yourself to someone else's imagination and what their idea of terrifying is cathartic.
Yeah.
Like Dan said, it is cathartic, and it yeah, I can totally see how that would have shaken you out of a lot of, because you know what, now that I think about it, it's probably what happened to a lot of us. Although when you talk to people nowadays, people like, for instance, do you like clowns? Are you afraid of clowns?
I'm indifferent.
Are you afraid of clowns?
I want to be a clown. That's like my next
I'm
gig
not
that I
afraid
want
of
to
clowns,
do.
but I
Yeah,
also
yeah.
didn't watch it when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I had always seen photos of Tim Curry dressed as Pennywise growing
Right,
up. Like it wasn't a thing, but I never watched that movie. I never watched, or that TV movie growing up. Right. So I didn't see any of like the terrifying Tim Curry imagery, but a lot of people that did are afraid of clowns now. Like that changed a lot of things for people, that particular movie.
And they totally did it again with the remake. So now, like, I feel like that narrative is being played out in many young people's minds. Like,
But having the new chapter 1 and chapter 2, it come out as an adult, like I'm going into that, watching that, not coming out of it going like, I'm terrified of clowns. Like, no, I'm coming out of that going like, I really like what they did in, like, I really like what Bill Skarsgård did creating, or, you know, bringing that character to life. And I really, like, I can appreciate the filmmaking of it, but it's not haunting me, but I can totally see how, like, go ahead.
This is why I love Ghostbusters, because Ghostbusters rides that line of, it's a little bit scary sometimes, it's really funny sometimes. It's like, it has this way of making the scary seem funny, and when you're terrified, you can crack a joke like Peter Venkman and everything's okay, or you can pull yourself back to reality. And so
It's Miller time.
It's Miller time. I love this plan. I just think like
Let's do it.
Everything about Ghostbusters for me has influenced my life, and it's because my parents that was the first movie I saw at a drive-through was Ghostbusters.
oh yeah.
And
I am immensely jealous right
yes,
now.
that is
oh my
incredible.
God.
we got 10 minutes.
It's
And I think-
incredible.
Wait, do we have 10 minutes left? Oh, okay.
No.
And I just think like having that as the first experience that I associate with movies, and that's like, I was 3 watching that, and like that library ghost that you have tattooed on your arm there is terrifying for a kid.
Yep.
But it's also really funny because the next shot is these grown men running out of the library.
Being terrified, yeah.
And it developed this love that I have for New York. So I've been to New York a few times. Like
You are my new favorite person.
High five.
Have you gone to the New York Central Public Library?
Absolutely.
And ran down the steps like a Ghostbuster?
Yeah, I sure
I
have.
literally put on
Yeah.
that song, put my phone in my
Did it.
pocket, and ran down the steps.
Yeah.
Like
I love Ghostbusters.
Oh,
And I
that's
took
so
a photo
good.
next to the lion.
Yeah.
I took photos in front of the firehouse. Oh yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the first thing I did when I went to New York
Yeah,
for
me
the first
too.
time.
I saw the
I
fire.
believe it.
I got off the plane, and the taxi driver was like, "Where are we going?" And he took me to the fire.
Oh, did they have the door? Like, did you get to talk to anybody that worked
I
there?
didn't talk to anybody.
No, I
I just
didn't
kind of
get to
stood
either.
there, and my girlfriend at the time took some pictures and stuff, and it was like, wow.
But
this
it's like
is
one of the
amazing.
most
I'm
amazing
exhausted.
experiences.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I
So it ties together the horror, the comedy, and it's this genre blending thing that I don't think has been replicated very well,
Well,
by
I mean,
anything else.
Ghostbusters 2016 replicate. I'm totally kidding. I'm totally.
I just mean by other movies. Like,
I'm very.
because Beverly Hills Cop is an action movie that was also a comedy.
Yeah.
And it
Yes.
was like,
Yep.
that worked. Like they were like,
It
oh, that
worked.
worked.
Which
No, I
that
think-
has been replicated many
times. But you bring up something that it's taking chances. Taking chances in film, you could do back then. You could do that back then. Take a chance on a film and see what happens. Man, I really don't know how many people are taking risks in Hollywood these days. Like
It's a lot rarer, but the thing is that it's not the people. It's not necessarily Hollywood that's taking the chances. It's people like Mitch, and
taking chances.
like it's independent artists that
Yeah.
are taking the chances and kind of going for gold essentially and working toward. That's why there's a filmmaker actually in Edmonton who made a movie called Skinamarink. I don't know if any of you have heard about that.
Great title.
Yeah, great title.
Great title immediately.
I believe the budget was super, super small, but he took it to some one of the film festivals that just happened not that long ago. It was like a horror film festival, I think. Not Fright Fest. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, he showed this movie there, and now there are so many people talking about this movie because the premise is essentially these two kids wake up in their house and their dad is gone and there's no windows or doors and they are like trying to find a way out. And basically the way he shot the movie is he virtually used no light. The only light is like from the TV and there's very little, like I started watching it and the whole thing is really unsettling.
Yeah,
and it's
that would
apparently
be.
like from like when people were writing about like Hereditary is one of the scariest movies of all time, and then you watch like I don't know if you guys liked Hereditary, but like
I did.
my one sentence review of Hereditary is it's a terrible movie with some really good acting and a lot of cool shit that happens.
Yes, those are actually the two reasons why I like that movie. Is like really good acting and some messed up.
Tony
stuff
Collette,
happens.
Tony Collette in that movie is at her best.
It's
Gabriel Byrne
like,
is
just
completely
fantastic.
wasted in that movie.
Yeah.
The kids are incredible, but the story sucks. Anyway,
Yeah.
Skinamarink, I still have to watch it, and I really want to. Like I said, the guy that made this movie is from Edmonton. Once I found that out, that was really cool. But that is something that an independent artist is doing and getting a lot of buzz for.
Yeah.
And that's the kind of stuff that we really need to support, especially with like something like this. With Rental Rewind and stuff, these are cool concepts that we really need to kind of get out there. And
Alberta's film industry is a hotbed right now.
Yo,
it's super
is.
exciting, and it's the place to be. Like in my mind, I know everyone. All my friends coming out of like art school and stuff, it was like, so are you staying in Calgary? Are you going to try and make a living there? Are you going to Toronto? Because Toronto was the place to be.
Or Vancouver, yeah.
Or Vancouver for film. Toronto was like because I have a theater background, so it was like you go to Toronto to try to make it in theater, and it's just like you're such a small fish in a big pond. You know what I mean? And
Here it's like the Wild Wild West.
it's the Wild West, and
Wicked
I
wow.
see
Wicked
people
wow.
out
Wicked
here.
wow.
But the people that stayed are doing amazing things.
Yes.
There's a company called Road West Pictures based in Calgary. They're doing some awesome stuff too. So I just like, anyways, I'm just excited about it.
Maybe we could like pull this stuff up and like just put it up there.
Yeah.
Just for like the things we're talking about that Alberta is doing and
Total,
stuff.
well, and I mean, like Ghostbusters Afterlife, the entire movie was shot here
Yes.
in 2019.
Yes.
And for me, that was one of the most incredible experiences of my life because
My friend Anna was Paul.
Oh, I know Anna.
You know Anna Lopez?
I'm very friends with Anna. I'm very good friends with Anna.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was actually like, they don't know Anna, but hilariously, when they first announced that they were making another Ghostbusters movie, she sent me that article and she was like, maybe they'll shoot here. And I said to her, I was like, Anna, they're probably going to shoot it in Toronto or something like that.
Yes.
Shortly thereafter, she messaged me and she was like, they're shooting it here and I'm working on it. And I was like,
She was like Paul Rudd's personal assistant.
Yeah, I know.
She
She
was
got
like
me-
his
she-
gopher.
Yeah, I got to hang out on set.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I before the movie, during the filming, I saw a bunch of stuff that obviously I had to sign an NDA being on set and stuff so I couldn't talk about it at the time. But like I saw, the sheriff scene, like I saw the proton pack sitting on the desk, like when she pulls it and she's like pointing it at him.
Man.
Like I watched them film that stuff and all that. So
I worked on the Drumheller set.
there you go.
That was a background.
So that right there. As a kid, when my grandma asked me when I was a kid, she was like, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I flat out told her, I was like, "I want to be a Ghostbuster."
Yes.
And my poor grandmother was like, "Well, you probably have to be a little bit more realistic than that." And that is
Exterminator.
It's a little. I mean, that's a little soul crushing for a kid, right? But it's like, honestly, like I never in a million years, because like I grew up in Crossfield too. And they shot a whole bunch of stuff. They shot at the high school that I graduated from. Yeah. All that science room stuff. That was my science room when I was in high school. How full circle is that for somebody who loves
connected to
and
it.
I got to meet Jason Reitman and show him my tattoo and be like, look, like, man, I love. And he was so excited about my tattoo. And we actually, in that meeting with Jason Reitman, that was the same time that Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was coming out.
Yes.
So he was like, "What are you doing?" It was a long weekend. He was like, "What are you doing for the long weekend?" I was like, "I was supposed to go camping, not going camping anymore." He was like, "Go see Once Upon a Time in Hollywood." I looked at him and I was like, "I've already seen it twice." He was like, "Me too." So like I had that nice moment with Jason Reitman. And then with Ivan Reitman,
Yes.
R.I.P.
The late great.
I had a really good, I didn't talk to him, but I had a nice moment. I was wearing my Ghostbusters hat and I was standing on the corner in front of where they had craft services set up. And I was talking to another friend that I know that works in the film industry. I was just standing there, and Ivan Reitman comes walking across the street, stands like shoulder to shoulder with me, stands right next to me. And I'm looking at my friend, and I'm like, Ivan Reitman is standing right next to me. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, I don't know if he's like waiting for me to say something to him or what. He literally just came and stopped and just like was standing there. And I'm like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And then he goes inside, grabs a sandwich, and he stood there for a while.
Yeah.
Comes back with his sandwich, stands next to me again, and I'm like, oh, that's the director of my favorite movie of all time.
Of all time. So
Like,
what did you do? Did you
when he died,
Yeah.
I said, I looked at my wife and I said, I really regret not saying anything to
Yeah.
him. But I mean, ultimately, at the same time, that was enough. It was enough for me to be in
You
his
stood
presence.
beside him, man.
I
Like,
stood
that's
beside him.
huge.
So I absolutely love that Ghostbusters. You resonate. Like, it was the same for me. One of the earliest memories I have of watching any movie is Ghostbusters when I was really little and we were visiting family in Chilliwack and they had rented Ghostbusters. And I remember the enormity of the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and just how silly it was, and how silly I don't
so
like
good.
it's just like those things like stuck in my head, and I could never get rid of them. And so I spent my entire life growing up being like, I want to be a Ghostbuster. I want to time travel with Doc and Marty and all that stuff. So for me, the nostalgia factor of all of video stores and all of that, it's really important to me. So I really like what you guys are doing here and all that. So
Well, and it's all Mitch.
no, I know it's all Mitch, but
We're
not talking about Mitch.
What you said, what Dan said, like he built a playground and then we're
Yes.
just here,
Yeah.
right?
This
And
is
I'm
the
happy that I get to
sandbox.
play in it
yeah,
too.
right.
This is the sandbox, and then he said, "Come play, come hang out,
Yeah.
come have fun," and we
And I
got
was
to do it.
I was one of the lucky kids that he was just like, "You come play." And I'm
Totally.
like, "Yeah." I'll
So
play.
before we leave, what can people expect from the game show? What?
Man. Basically, what we're doing right here is what I want people to experience.
Totally.
So we're going to fire out questions to people, have them answer, have fun, but it's the after effect. The idea of like, let's talk about movies.
Yes.
Let's talk about these stories that we love, that meant something to us, that bring us to a different place in our minds. And I love that. This is what I want for people. Come watch the show, have fun with the antics that we do, but then walk away with, man, I want to talk about movies. Just want to talk about these things. Right?
Any final words, Dan? Mr. Masters, the playwright.
Yeah, there's no pressure. I think, I think that's it. I think going to the movies and watching movies at home has, for me at least at this point in my life, become a very sort of private, personal thing.
Yeah. Yes.
And opening it up and having that conversation with people. You know, I think it's, to quote Muhammad Ali, it's me, we, right? It's not just
Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee.
Well, yeah.
But that's what it's all about, Dan. Is
Take
like
a
the
step
idea
back
of like,
and watch me pee.
but no, that's what I want. Because what you were saying, what the kids these days are missing, what the kids are missing these days is what we're trying to do right here. Trauma. The experience of talking about movies, not just watching a movie and going, that was cool. No,
And
talk
talking
about
it in a
Talking
thoughtful
about
way and
it.
being like, you liked it, I didn't like it, that's fine. Like
Yeah.
having that level of respect too, I think is important and
Yeah.
fun, and being like, yeah, okay, so why didn't you like The Princess
But that's
Bride?
what we're doing. That's what we're doing, man. We're creating that environment for people
Yeah.
to do that.
And I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
For coming and hanging out on the couch in your set instead of doing the game show today. I, for one, cannot wait to see it, and I can't wait to see all of the surprises you have lined up for Rental Rewind. For Rental Rewind, not Rewind.
We wind.
But if it was
so-
Gilbert Godfrey saying it.
Well, I don't know. I just live in this godforsaken video store. I don't know how to leave. Martha!
But for this episode of Ranting Rewind, I'm Lincoln. This is Dan. This is Tare. We're going to catch you on the next episode, and make sure that you watch Rental Rewind when it comes out. Also, go find me at This Will Never Work, the podcast.
Great title.
Because it's just never gonna work. But honestly, I opened myself up. I cut myself open, and I bleed for you.
I bleed.
So thank you very much for stopping by. I'm Lincoln. Thank you. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye.
Welcome to Ranting Rewind. I'm Lincoln.